The family think they're doing the right thing for their daughter. They don't think they're hurting her. They want their daughter to marry, to find a good husband. They want the dowry for the girl's virginity. A mother won't do something to her daughter if she knows it'll harm her. But the family think they're doing the right thing no matter what happens as a result of the mutilation. They know that anything can happen when she's cut. The girl could die. If she does, people think that God wanted that to happen. They don't think that the cut might be done badly, that the girl might bleed to death, or she might get an infection. No, people think they're doing the right thing. They want their daughter to get married. They want her to be a pure, clean woman who will be respected in society. The family is thinking positively.
Female genital mutilation. Keys to dialogue. Many families perform female genital mutilation on girls, thinking that it is a positive, beneficial practice for girls and women. Various reasons are given to support this. In this video, we summarize some of these reasons, and we also offer arguments in order to discuss them and to help families fight against this practice. Is female ablation obligatory in the Muslim religion?
There are ethnic groups in other parts of Africa, such as Christians and animists, who do it to girls, but people associate it with the Muslim religion. They think that a Muslim woman has to be mutilated. That's the concept and the education we're given. They believe that the religion says that a Muslim woman has to be mutilated, but the Quran doesn't mention it. There is no Quranic verse that says our girls and women have to be mutilated. The Prophet Muhammad protects women. He says that women must not be harmed. But people read it to suit themselves. They interpret it for their own benefit. They teach that the Muslim woman has to be mutilated. At first they think that it's for religious reasons, that all Muslims do it. If they say that, we tell them that it isn't so. We're Muslims, but so are the Moroccans, for example, and they don't do it. When we say that, their reaction is that true? And we say, yes. Once we even brought a video of an imam talking about the subject so that they would realize that it's not done because of religion. We associate it with religion, but I don't know why. We've seen that it's done, and we're Muslims. So the easiest thing is to say, it's for religion. We associate it with male circumcision, but that's something different. That is done for religious reasons. It's obligatory. But as they do it to women too, people think that's for religious reasons too.
Is female ablation the same as male circumcision?
It's better for men, but with women what they cut isn't skin, it's the sensitivity that we have. They take it away. If it were the same for men, they would lose sensitivity too. But no, their skin is removed for hygienic reasons. So when I'm asked, is it the same for men? I say no, it's different. And I explain, what we have isn't skin, it's our natural sensitivity. They take that away from you. People often say that male circumcision is equivalent to ablation. They say, just as they circumcise men, they also circumcise women. And at times, they even use the same word to talk about ablation. But it's not true that it's comparable. What they remove in male circumcision is a little bit of skin that doesn't affect the structure of the penis or its functioning or its sensitivity. With a woman, what they remove isn't a little piece of skin. They remove the clitoris, the labia, various elements that are important for a woman's health. To get an idea, if we did the equivalent to the male genitals, if we did to a man's body what is done to a woman's with ablation, it would be as if we cut the glans of the penis, removed it, and the penis was left without the glans. Or if we compare it to when not only the woman's clitoris is cut, but the labia are cut too, it would be like cutting the glans off the penis, removing it, and emptying the penis inside. So you can't compare what is being removed in one case to what is removed in the other.
Some people think that cut female genitals are cleaner, that the woman is purer.
It's done because people think the genitals will be cleaner. They don't want the genitals to grow more. A woman has to be clean, and when she doesn't have a clitoris, she's pure and worthy of the family. And also they think that she can't be unfaithful to her husband, that she can have more children, and that they'll be born safely, they won't die. They think it has to do with the woman's cleanliness and purity.
I think that all those ideas that a woman isn't pure or clean, they didn't know what was tradition and what was religion, and they mixed up a lot of things. Some even said that if a woman wasn't cut, she couldn't pray or go to Mecca. They're greatly mistaken, because in Saudi Arabia, women aren't cut.
The women talk about a dirty vagina, the smell, but if urine and menstrual blood can't be passed properly, it's just the opposite. A mutilated woman can have more serious problems with smell and infections. Also, it's often said that ablation makes the female genitals cleaner. They talk about cleanliness, at times in a spiritual, religious sense. But there is no religious reason for practicing ablation because it isn't mentioned in the Quran. It isn't a religious rule in the Muslim religion. But it does say that you have to look after girls, take care of them, not hurt them. Also, if it were a religious rule, it would be practiced in countries like Morocco or Saudi Arabia, where the majority follow the Muslim religion. It's not a Muslim rule. In fact, there are Jews and Christians who practice it. As for cleanliness in the physical sense, it isn't true that ablation improves cleanliness in the genitals. Cutting female genitals doesn't make them cleaner, just the opposite. It makes them more prone to infections and to other problems. It damages the skin, so we're not making them cleaner.
Some people think that ablation is a tradition and should be maintained.
We want to help our people, our country, but first, the most important thing is health. We have to give up anything that goes against our health, whether it's religious or cultural. The human being comes first, and this culture harms women's health. Women suffer, girls die from it, but men suffer too because they love their wives and their daughters.
At times, the practice of ablation is justified because it is thought that it makes the woman's genitals more beautiful. I think that, as women who have been cut have always heard that, and as they don't see other women's genitals, they think that what they have is nicer than anyone else's. Some women, when you show them the female genital organs, look very closely to get a proper idea. But as they haven't examined their bodies for years, since they were children, and haven't talked to anyone, each one thinks what she has is better.
The attitude of women in general, not just African women, but women in every culture, as regards their genitals, is something that has to be improved. It isn't usual, in fact it's quite frequent, to find many women who have never looked at their genitals. They don't know what they look like, even adults, women who have had children. There are women who reject their genitals, who think they're an ugly part of their body and they don't value them at all. In the case of African women, we see a great ignorance about their own genitals. Perhaps that ignorance is reinforced by certain characteristic factors in African culture, such as the fact that sexuality is a very taboo subject and is never discussed. Women or female sexuality is something that isn't mentioned very much, because it's a chauvinist society. All that is reflected in certain remarks, certain questions, certain consultations by women, which show that many of them haven't looked at their genitals or don't know what they're like. In the case of mutilated women, they don't know what kind of mutilation they have. They don't know what amount of tissue or what part of their genitals may have been damaged. Nor do they know what the genitals of a woman who hasn't been mutilated are like. There is also a common idea that they have to be constantly cleaning and washing their genitals, as if they were something dirty. In addition, they aren't accustomed to having gynecological examinations, just to be checked out on a regular basis, as a preventative measure. All those factors contribute to many things. They contribute to a silence and an ignorance, which also makes it difficult for many professionals who could perhaps help a woman with some of the consequences that mutilation may be causing in her health and in her sexuality.
Some people think that it's necessary to cut a woman so that she remains chaste, a virgin until she is married, or faithful to her husband.
Fidelity comes from the person, not from mutilation. It's the person's conscience. If I want to wait for my husband, if I want to be faithful to my husband and I love him, it comes from here. It's the person's conscience and mind. It has nothing to do with mutilation. Everyone is as they are. There are women who aren't mutilated, have never married and are virgins. They don't even want to be with a man. There are women who are mutilated and chase after men. It depends on each person, on one's personality. We are human beings. Everyone is as they are. Being cut has nothing to do with whether you go with another man or are a virgin when you get married, or any of that. You say to them, look, you know me, I'm not cut. I'm married and I don't go with every man I see. It's strange, but that's when some women say, hey, it's true. All these women aren't. What they told me isn't true. Other women get there their own way, which is, you're cut and so am I. You go with lots of men and I don't. So what they told me isn't true.
If a woman's genitals aren't cut, the clitoris will grow like a penis. It is also said that an uncut clitoris can harm the baby at birth or the husband during sexual relations.
They say that they also do it for health reasons. It's something dirty and we can't have it. A man and a woman can't have the same thing. One thing's got nothing to do with the other, but they say it's something we were born with. But we don't need it, it isn't healthy. And they even say, to manipulate the girl or the woman, although normally the ablation is done on girls, that she could kill her baby when it's born, if her clitoris touches it. So, supposedly, it's something that isn't good for us.
Those are things that people say. But if we look, for example, at a woman who isn't cut, we see that she hasn't got a penis. She has no problem with her clitoris. They're ideas people put in your head. But if you think about it for a bit, you can see that your neighbor is like you, and she doesn't have it like that. It's easy to discover.
There is no good reason for the mutilation. They did it to your mother, so they'll do it to you too. That way it'll be easier for you to get married. There's a series of myths that have to be taken apart and explained. I've seen that women understand it very quickly. You explain to them and they say, so it's all a lie. If your clitoris touches a baby's head, nothing's going to happen to it, and your clitoris isn't going to grow either. I don't know what ideas some women have about European women's genitals, but when they see photos, they admit that the genitals are fine as they are, and there's nothing wrong with the clitoris.
In some cases, it is believed that female ablation improves fertility.
That isn't true, but some people say that if you aren't cut... Here in Europe, people have fewer children, but that's got nothing to do with ablation. You have to explain that it's for other reasons, such as contraception. But it's not because they aren't cut. In our country, there are people who haven't been cut, and they have more children than us. At times, the women who make the cut are elderly, they don't have good eyesight, and their hands might shake. If they take a month-old baby, how do they know they're only cutting the clitoral hood? Most of the time, they take much more than they intended. There may be no adhesion, a neighbouring organ may be cut, the scar may become a keloid. It's not just the cut in itself, it's all that might happen with subsequent complications.
Does female ablation really benefit men? If a woman who is cut has so many complications that in the future she'll have poor health, no man is going to want that to happen.
In order to decide about something, you have to know what it is. That is especially so in the case of men. So they can decide if it's good or bad for us and for them, they should know what it is. First, it isn't good for the woman. Then it isn't good for him or for his future child, who may die. There are men who have no family because all their children have died at birth, or the women they've married have died giving birth.
The man has sexual relations with her, and it hurts him too. But as no one talks about it the next day, what can you do? Nothing. You keep quiet, because that's how it is. It hurts men, but before there was nothing that could be done. Now there is.
Yes, young men are changing here, and they're changing in our country too, because they can see that there's a fight to eradicate ablation. Young men see the relationship between mutilation and pleasure. This girl is mutilated, this girl isn't. How do they get pleasure? Young men are changing their ideas. They say, I don't want a girl who's mutilated. I don't want to be with a girl like that. I want a normal girl. They're changing the chip. They don't believe what their parents told them. They're changing now. Our society in general is still far from thinking like that. But there are people who see the television or are in contact with organizations there, and they're changing. I'm talking about urban areas. The rural areas are still very far behind. Mutilation is a disadvantage for them too, because they can't have normal penetration or normal sexual pleasure with their wives. With infibulation, the orifice is very small, and it hurts many of them, not to mention that the woman is crying from the pain. Penetration is physically painful for the men. So many of them, although they don't admit it, use other methods. They ejaculate at the entrance to the vagina, or they masturbate. Things like that, so as not to hurt the woman, they say, but also so as not to hurt themselves. That's why things are changing with the new generation. Men are objecting because with infibulation it means zero pleasure for him and for her. With female genital mutilation, it's the women, obviously, who are most harmed by it, because their health and sexuality are affected for the rest of their lives. But men don't gain anything from it either. Frequently, men can't fully enjoy their sexuality if they see that their partner is suffering during certain kinds of sexual relations. It's obvious that a person enjoys sex more when their partner is enjoying it at the same time. In fact, if these men have had experiences with women who aren't mutilated, they've seen the difference and seen that if a woman isn't mutilated, she has more probabilities of enjoying sex, and therefore he has more options too. If we look at type 3 mutilation or infibulation, the men whose partners have had an infibulation are faced with a lot of complications, because not only do their wives suffer, but many kinds of relation, for example penetration, on many occasions can't be performed.
What does Spanish legislation say about female genital mutilation?
In Spain, any kind of ablation is considered a criminal offence. So the person who performs it or collaborates with it being performed on a girl can be sentenced to between 6 and 12 years in prison. Also, the parents of the girl can lose custody of her. In addition, since 2005, it's a punishable crime, even if it isn't done in Spain. For example, if the family returned to the country of origin for a holiday, performed the ablation on the girl there and then bring her back to Spain, that would also be a crime. Of course, the ideal thing would be that the family are fully informed about the consequences of ablation or mutilation and decide to abandon the practice because it isn't good for their daughter, and not just because it's against the law. That would be ideal, that ablation isn't carried out because people see that it's not good for their daughters.
Many families don't want to cut their daughters, but there's a lot of pressure.
Here, what women talk about most on the course is rejection. If I don't do it, I'll be rejected. People will say, she isn't. On the last course, one woman said to me, when I went to Africa, one girl there started to say, the girls who come from Spain aren't mutilated. The woman grabbed her and said, let that be the last time you talk about this. What do you know? Have you looked at my daughter to see that she isn't mutilated? So that's what scares a lot of them. But I tell them that no one is going to look at their daughters. They're not going to say that their daughters aren't mutilated. She's my daughter. I know the consequences. I won't do it, and that's that. If you let me, I'll explain the consequences. If you want, you do the same. I do it, you do it, another person does it, and bit by bit, there will be more girls who aren't mutilated. Your daughter isn't going to be rejected because she won't be the only one. There are more girls who aren't mutilated. This woman said, "Let it be the last time that you say my daughter isn't mutilated, because you haven't seen her, and I haven't told you that she isn't mutilated." The girl said, "No, but they say that in Spain you don't mutilate girls." The woman answered, "Yes, but you and I haven't talked about that, and I didn't tell you." She said it like that. She isn't mutilated. I won't let them point at her in the town and say things. No, I stopped it that day, and my daughter is still like that, and no one has touched her. She was very brave. A lot of families are returning to their countries of origin. If over time we haven't managed to bring about a change in their attitude, once they arrive back in their countries, if they're not going to return to Europe, they're going to mutilate their daughters. But if they've been convinced otherwise, they're going to protect their daughters. We've talked about this with families who are back there now, with all their children, with daughters who were born in Spain and are now 12 years old. The families have gone back because of the economic situation here, but they've told us, "You can trust us. No one is going to touch these girls." They know that people there will reject them, but they also know other things. They know that if a man rejects you because of that, he doesn't deserve to be with your daughter. They've said that themselves, and I think it's a great step forward. And it's thanks to mediation, to the professionals that have intervened, to all the people who've talked about it. It's not a conversation that is had in one day or when they're about to travel. It's something that happens over time.
A lot of families practice ablation on their daughters because they think it's beneficial for them.
We all want to be healthy. We come from our country to Europe to look for a better future, a better life. In this better life, if we don't have health, what do we do? If you don't want a better life for your daughter, why are you in Europe? Because we come here for a better future. In that better future, we also have to look for something we can transmit to those who can't come here. For example, health. That's the most important thing, because it's what they don't have in Africa, because there are no means. So we have to use the means we have here to get information. Through that information, we can cure ourselves without going to the doctor. First, mutilation. If we stop that, all the girls will be healthy. The women will be healthy. But if we keep doing it, we are buying the illness, knowing what it is. What do we do about the people who don't know? Inform them.
What we always aim for is that the family decide themselves to stop these practices. We want them to realize that there are consequences that are bad for a woman's health. We work mainly on prevention, because if we do it properly, we can prevent further cases.
For example, if a family comes now and they say they're going back to their country, and they're going to keep doing it because it's their culture or religion or... I say, look, think about it. Don't let what happened to you happen to your daughter too. Because even if we weren't able to enjoy it, at least we want our daughters to enjoy it. One thing is culture, from which we can all benefit. But this is a culture where there is no benefit, only suffering. I don't know if you want to transmit the suffering you had to your daughter. Think about it. I love my daughter. I love my son. I want them to be healthy.
This documentary film was produced by Lasexologia.com and co-funded by the Spanish Ministry of Employment and Social Security, General Office of Immigration and Immigration, and the European Integration Fund.